The celebration hall of the Coalition flagship glowed with soft blue light. Taeyang stood near the window watching stars drift past. He wore formal robes that Earth had designed 3 decades ago, when humans first joined the galaxy. The fabric was simple and elegant, nothing that would frighten anyone. Around him, dozens of alien species mingled peacefully. Some had wings, some had scales, some looked like walking crystals. All of them had one thing in common. None of them were predators. The galaxy, it turned out, was mostly vegetarians and filter feeders, species that ate plants or absorbed nutrients from water. They had no claws, no sharp teeth, no instinct for the hunt. This made humans very different, but humans had learned to hide that difference well. Nari joined him at the window. She smiled softly, her eyes gentle as always. She had spent 15 years studying alien cultures, learning their languages, understanding their ways. She genuinely loved these peaceful species. That love was not fake, but she also knew what she was hiding from them. The party was for them. 30 years since humans joined the Coalition. 30 years of careful diplomacy. 30 years of showing the galaxy that humans were artists, philosophers, and scientists, not warriors. Never warriors. Velamora approached them, her feathers rippling with happiness. She was the Coalition commander, leader of this flagship. She looked like a giant bird with intelligent golden eyes and a gentle manner. She had never seen war. Her species had never fought anyone. Taeyang, Nari, I'm so glad you are here, Velamora said in her singing voice. 30 years. Sometimes I cannot believe it has been so long. When humans first came to us, some species were afraid. They had heard stories about Earth, about violence and conflict. But you showed us the truth. Humans are peaceful. You are artists and thinkers. You brought such beauty to our Coalition. Taeyang smiled warmly. We are honored to be part of this family, he said. His voice was calm and measured, the voice of a diplomat. Earth has learned much from the Coalition. You taught us that there are better ways to live. This was true in a way. Earth had changed dramatically in the past 300 years. No more wars between nations. No more genocide or conquest. Humanity had looked at itself in the mirror and decided to become something better. They had built a peaceful civilization, full of art and music and philosophy. But that civilization was built on top of 10,000 years of almost constant warfare. 2 million years of hunting and killing. Evolution did not forget. It just went to sleep. Hyun stood in the corner of the room watching everyone. He was security officer for the human delegation. Tall and quiet, with careful eyes that noticed everything. The other species thought he was just cautious. They did not know he was former Special Forces. They did not know he had spent 20 years learning how to kill in 100 different ways. He kept that knowledge locked away. He smiled politely at aliens who passed by. He helped serve drinks. He looked harmless. That was the point. Kaveth approached him, her insect-like body clicking softly as she moved. She was a scientist, always curious, always asking questions.
Yun, she said, I have been reading about Earth history.
There are some gaps in the records. Large periods where information seems missing. Why is that? Hyun kept his expression neutral. Old data was lost during the Reformation period, he said smoothly. When Earth unified, some records were not preserved properly. We focus on our present and future now, not our past. Kaveth tilted her head. She did not look convinced, but she did not press further. Hyun felt relieved. The truth was simpler. Humans had deliberately buried most of their violent history, kept just enough to seem honest, but hid the worst parts. No one needed to know about the world wars, the nuclear weapons, the genocides, the endless, creative ways humans had found to kill each other. The Coalition would not have accepted humanity if they knew the full truth. Fear would have kept Earth isolated forever, so humans had made a choice. Show them the culture, hide the capacity, become the peaceful species they wanted to see. And for 30 years it had worked perfectly. Suddenly, alarms began to sound. The soft lighting turned red. The celebration stopped immediately. All around the room, aliens looked confused and frightened. They did not understand danger. Their species had evolved without it. Velamora flew to the command console. Her feathers were now standing up in distress. Unknown ship approaching, she announced, her voice shaking. They are not responding to our communications. They are moving very fast. Taeyang moved to her side quickly. His diplomat training took over. Send peaceful greetings in all standard languages, he said. Offer assistance. Perhaps their communications are damaged, but Hyun was already moving toward the exit. His body had changed somehow. More alert, more focused. Nari noticed and felt a chill. She had seen Hyun like this only once before, during a training accident years ago. He had moved so fast, so efficiently. Then he had apologized and returned to his usual calm self. The ship docked violently, shaking the entire hall. Then the doors exploded inward. The creatures that entered were like nothing in the Coalition. They were huge, covered in thick armor-like skin, with massive jaws full of sharp teeth. They carried weapons that crackled with energy. They moved like hunters, confident and cruel. These were the Kravex, a species from outside Coalition space. They were everything the Coalition was not. Violent, aggressive. They survived by conquering and enslaving other species. The lead Kravex laughed, a horrible grinding sound. Weak prey, it said in broken Coalition standard. You make good slaves. You come with us now. Resist and die. Velimora stepped forward bravely, though Taeyang could see her entire body trembling. We are the Galactic Coalition, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We are a peaceful alliance. We have resources and knowledge to trade. There is no need for violence. Please let us negotiate. The Kravex struck her across the face with casual brutality. Velimora fell to the ground, golden blood dripping from her beak. The other Coalition members screamed and huddled together. They had no idea what to do. Violence was not part of their world. They were paralyzed by it. More Kravex entered, spreading through the hall. They grabbed aliens roughly, treating them like animals. Some Coalition members fainted from pure fear. Others stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Taeyang felt something inside him crack. For 30 years he had been the perfect diplomat. Patient, understanding, always seeking peaceful solutions. He had trained himself to suppress every aggressive instinct. But now he watched Velimora bleeding on the floor. Watched aliens he had known for decades being manhandled and terrified. Watched creatures who had never known violence experience it for the first time. A Kravex grabbed Nari. She cried out as its claws dug into her arm. It pulled her toward the exit, grinning with sharp teeth. Something ancient woke up inside Taeyang. Something that had been sleeping for 30 years. Something that went back 2 million years, to when his ancestors hunted across African plains, when they became the most dangerous predators Earth had ever produced. Across the room, Hyun had already moved. The nearest Kravex was on the ground, its weapon in Hyun's hands. Hyun's face was completely different now. Calm but deadly, his eyes tracked every threat with perfect awareness. He fired the weapon once. The Kravex holding Nari dropped dead. The room went completely silent. Every Kravex turned to look at Hyun. They had not expected resistance, especially not from the small, soft-looking human. Hyun smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator that had been pretending to be prey. The smile of something that had been waiting patiently for an excuse to stop pretending. Big mistake, Hyun said quietly. You should have left when you had the chance. Around the room, other humans were changing too. Their relaxed postures became alert. Their gentle expressions hardened. They moved differently, with a grace that suddenly looked dangerous. The Kravex had come expecting easy prey. They thought the Coalition was weak and helpless. They were right about the Coalition. They were very wrong about the humans. Taeyang looked at his hands. They were steady. His heartbeat was controlled. His mind was clear and focused. Everything they taught him in diplomat school was gone. Everything his ancestors knew about hunting and killing had returned. The mask humanity had worn for 30 years was about to slip. And the galaxy was going to learn the truth about Earth's peaceful species. They were never prey. They had always been hunters. They had just forgotten for a while, now they remembered. The Kravex warriors stared at Hyun. For a moment, nobody moved. The huge aliens were confused. The small human should be terrified. Instead, he stood calm and ready, holding their weapon like he had used one his entire life. Then the Kravex roared and charged. They were big and strong, confident in their size and power. They had conquered dozens of species. A few small humans would be easy. Hyun moved like water. He was not where the first attacker expected him to be. The Kravex weapon swung through empty air. Hyun was already behind the creature, striking at pressure points with precise force. The alien dropped to its knees, stunned. Another human, a woman named Mina, who worked as a botanist, grabbed a fallen weapon. She had spent 15 years studying alien plants. But before that, before joining the Coalition, She had spent 5 years in Earth's defense forces, training that was never mentioned in her official records. She fired with smooth efficiency. 2 shots, 2 dead Kraveks. Her hands did not shake. Her face showed no emotion. The gentle scientist was gone. Something older had replaced her. Taeyang ran to Nari, pulling her away from the fallen Kraveks. She looked up at him with wide eyes. "Taeyang, what is happening?" she whispered. "What are we doing?" "Surviving," he said simply. His voice was different, harder. "Stay behind me." Around the hall, the other coalition species watched in shock. They saw humans transform before their eyes. The polite diplomats and friendly scientists became something else. Something efficient and deadly. Kaveth pressed herself against the wall, her insect body trembling. She watched a human engineer named Borum disable 3 Kraveks using nothing but his bare hands and knowledge of anatomy. Borum moved with terrifying speed, targeting joints and nerve clusters. Each movement was precise and calculated. This was not random violence. This was trained, practiced skill. How did peaceful humans know how to fight like this? The Kraveks leader bellowed orders. More warriors poured into the hall. They outnumbered the humans 5 to 1, but numbers did not seem to matter. The humans moved together without speaking, coordinating perfectly. They used the room itself as a weapon, leading Kraveks into bottlenecks and corners. Hyun called out commands in a clipped military style. "Mina, high right. Borum, flank left. Taeyang, protect the civilians." The humans obeyed instantly, moving like parts of a single organism. Taeyang found himself guarding a group of terrified aliens. His body had taken over, running on instinct and training he thought he had buried. He had been a diplomat for 30 years. But before that, before the coalition, he had trained in combat like every human of his generation. Earth required it even during peacetime. Just in case, he never thought he would need those skills. He had hoped he never would. But his body remembered everything. The stance, the awareness, the cold calculation of threats and responses. A Kraveks broke through the others, charging at the group of civilians. Taeyang stepped forward. He caught the alien's weapon arm, twisted, and used the creature's own momentum against it. The Kraveks crashed into the wall hard enough to crack its armor. Velamora, still on the floor bleeding, watched this with stunned disbelief. "Taeyang?" she whispered. "What are you?" He looked down at her, and for a moment his eyes were sad. "I am sorry you had to see this," he said quietly. Then he turned back to face another attacker. The fight continued for 10 brutal minutes. The humans were outnumbered, but they had advantages the Kraveks did not expect. Speed, strategy, an understanding of combat that went beyond simple strength. Humans had evolved as endurance hunters. They could keep going long after other predators tired. While the Kraveks started to slow down, breathing hard, the humans maintained their pace. Their bodies were built for this. More than that, humans had evolved to outwit prey that was faster and stronger. They understood tactics instinctively. They predicted movements. They set traps. They adapted to enemy behavior in real time. The Kraveks had conquered species that ran away or froze in fear. They had never fought a species that fought back with intelligence and coordination. Slowly, the tide turned. One by one, the Kraveks fell. Some were dead. Some were unconscious. Some were wounded and crawling away. The humans did not chase the ones who retreated. They just let them go, focusing on protecting the coalition members. Finally, it was over. The last Kraveks warrior fled through the broken doors. The hall was silent except for heavy breathing and quiet sobbing from traumatized aliens. The humans stood among the wreckage, covered in blood and breathing hard. But they were all alive. More importantly, all the coalition members were alive too. Hyun lowered his weapon. He looked tired suddenly, like he had been holding something back for a long time and finally let it out. "Everyone all right?" he asked in his normal, gentle voice. But no one answered. The coalition species just stared at the humans with expressions of fear and confusion. These were not the humans they knew. These were strangers wearing familiar faces. Nari helped Velmora to her feet. The commander was shaking, her feathers matted with blood. "You lied to us," Velmora said hoarsely. "For 30 years you lied." Nari looked heartbroken. "We never lied about who we want to be," she said softly. "Only about what we used to be. What you used to be." Kaveth emerged from her hiding place, her voice high with stress. "You still are this. I just watched you kill with ease. With practice. This is not something you learned recently. Taeyang stepped forward, his hands open and empty. He was trying to look non-threatening again, but it did not work anymore. Everyone had seen what he could do. "Please," he said. "Let us help the wounded. Let us secure this area. Then we will explain everything. I promise." The coalition members did not know what to do. They were hurt and scared. They had just been attacked by violent aliens. The humans had saved them. But now they were afraid of their saviors, too. Velmora made the decision. "Help the wounded," she ordered, her voice weak but firm. "But humans will stay where we can see them. No weapons. Security teams will watch you at all times." Hyun nodded slowly. He set down his weapon and raised his hands. The other humans did the same. They moved carefully, trying to appear harmless again. But it was too late. The illusion was broken. As they worked to treat injuries and clean up the hall, coalition members kept their distance. They whispered to each other nervously. Some were grateful. Some were terrified. All of them were confused. Kaveth approached her computer console with shaking limbs. She pulled up Earth's historical records, the ones that were publicly available. She had read them before, years ago. They seemed boring at the time. Earth's cultural renaissance. 300 years of peace and art. But now she looked at what came before that renaissance. She dug deeper, looking for records that had been minimized or summarized vaguely, and she found them. Thousands of years of war, empires rising and falling through conquest, weapons that could destroy entire cities, genocides, slavery, violence on a scale the coalition could not imagine. Humans had not always been peaceful. Peace was recent. Very recent, and even more disturbing was Earth's evolutionary history. Kaveth read about humanity's ancestors, how they hunted prey by chasing it until it collapsed from exhaustion, how they used tools and strategy to kill animals much larger than themselves, how they wiped out every other human species through competition and war. Humans were apex predators, the most successful predators Earth had ever produced, and they had been hiding this fact from the galaxy for 3 decades. Kaveth looked up from her console. Across the room, Taeyang was gently bandaging an injured alien, speaking soft words of comfort. He looked kind and caring, but she had seen him fight. She knew what those gentle hands could do. What had the coalition invited into their alliance? What slept behind those civilized faces? And most terrifying of all, what would happen if humans decided they did not want to be peaceful anymore? The Kravex attack was just the beginning. The real crisis was about to start, because now the coalition had to decide what to do about humanity, and they had to make that decision while Kravex reinforcements were already on their way. The Kravex who escaped the celebration hall ran back to their ship in panic. They sent an immediate message to their main fleet. The message was simple and desperate. They had found prey that fought back. They needed help, but the Kravex did not understand. Help was not coming fast enough, and the prey they had found was still hunting them. Hyun studied the ship's security displays in the command center. He stood quietly while coalition officers watched him nervously. Velmora had ordered him brought here despite her fear. They needed his expertise. There, Hyun pointed at the screen. 15 Kravex in Corridor 7. 20 more in the cargo bay. They are regrouping, trying to hold defensive positions until their ship can evacuate them. What do we do? Velmora asked. Her voice was still shaky. The coalition had ships but no weapons. Their security forces carried stunners designed to stop drunken crew members, not armored warriors. We hunt them, Hyun said simply, before they hurt more people. Kaveth made a distressed clicking sound. Hunt, we are not predators. We do not know how to hunt. We do, Hyun said quietly. Let us handle this. Keep all coalition members in safe areas. Lock down the corridors behind us. We will clear the ship section by section. Velmora looked at Taeyang, who had joined them in the command center. Can we trust you? She asked directly. After hiding what you are for 30 years, how do we know you will not turn on us too? Taeyang met her eyes steadily. Because you are our pack, he said. The Kravex hurt you. That makes them our enemy. Humans protect their pack, always. Something in his tone made Velmora shiver. It was not a threat. It was a promise. A very old promise coded into human genetics. Humans were tribal creatures. They would die for their tribe. Do it, Velmora decided. Clear the ship. But I am watching everything through security cameras. If you turn on us, I will vent every corridor you are in to space. Fair enough, Hyun said with a slight smile. He gathered the other humans. There were only 12 of them on the flagship, 12 against nearly 50 Kraveks still aboard. But Hyun did not look worried. Nari joined the group. Taeyang grabbed her arm. "You do not have to do this," he said urgently. "You are not a fighter. Stay here where it is safe." She looked at him with sad eyes. "I know more about Kravek psychology than anyone here. I have been studying them for 5 years. I know how they think, how they react to stress, what frightens them. You need that knowledge," and she was right. Hyun nodded slowly. "Stay in the back. Use your knowledge to guide us. But do not engage in combat." The humans moved through the ship in careful formation. They communicated with small hand signals, barely speaking. Coalition members watching through cameras were struck by how professional they looked. This was not improvised. This was trained behavior. The first group of Kraveks was in a storage corridor. 5 warriors, heavily armed, guarding an intersection. They looked confident. They had numbers and weapons. Nari studied them through a corner camera. "They are loud," she whispered, talking constantly to boost courage. Kraveks use sound to intimidate. It is instinct for them. But it also means they will not hear you coming. Hyun nodded. "Boram, Mina, go through the maintenance shaft. Come up behind them. Rest of us will distract from the front." The humans executed the plan perfectly, while Hyun's group made noise down one corridor, drawing attention. 2 humans crawled through the ceiling. The Kraveks never thought to look up. They were ground fighters, not used to 3-dimensional thinking. Humans had evolved as tree climbers before they became ground hunters. They understood vertical space instinctively. When the attack came, it was over in seconds. The Kraveks were caught between 2 forces. They tried to fight, but humans were too fast, too coordinated. 5 enemies became 5 bodies without any human casualties. In the command center, Kaveth watched with horrified fascination. "They make it look easy," she whispered. "It is not easy," Velmora said quietly. "It is practiced. How many times have they done this? How much of human history is this?" The humans continued through the ship. Each encounter followed a similar pattern. Study the enemy. Find their weakness. Attack from unexpected angles. Use intelligence instead of brute force. A human named Junho, who worked as a musician, used his perfect hearing to track Kravek's movements through walls. A scientist named Hana used her knowledge of ship systems to cut power to specific sections, plunging enemies into darkness while humans moved confidently through it. Humans had evolved with forward-facing eyes for depth perception and binocular vision. They could see in dim light. Most prey species had side-facing eyes for wide-angle vision. The Kraveks were somewhere in between. In the dark, humans had the advantage, but it was more than physical advantages. It was psychology. Nari proved invaluable there. She understood how Kraveks thought, how they would react to threats, how to herd them into traps. "Leave bodies where they will find them," she suggested coldly. "Kraveks have excellent smell. They will know their packmates are dead. It will make them nervous, more likely to make mistakes." Taeyang looked at her in surprise. Sweet, gentle Nari, who cried at sad movies and loved all living things. Now she was calmly discussing psychological warfare. "What?" she said, noticing his expression. "I study behavior. All behavior, including fear and aggression. Just because I prefer peace does not mean I do not understand conflict." The Kraveks in the cargo bay realized they were being hunted. They barricaded the entrances and called desperately for their ship. But the coalition had locked down the docking ports. The Kravek ship could not reconnect. The warriors were trapped with humans who knew exactly what they were doing. Hyun studied the cargo bay layout. 20 enemies. Barricaded position. They have good cover and firing angles. This will be difficult. "What do you need?" Taeyang asked. "Time," Hyun said, "and someone who can talk to them." "Distract them," Taeyang smiled grimly. "I am a diplomat. Talking is what I do." He approached the cargo bay doors and spoke through the intercom. His voice was calm and reasonable, the voice he had used in thousands of negotiations. "Kraveks warriors, you are surrounded. Your ship cannot reach you, but we do not want more bloodshed. Surrender now and we will treat you according to coalition law. You will be imprisoned but alive." The Kraveks leader snarled back. "We do not surrender to prey. You think you won? Our fleet comes. They will crush you all. We just need to survive a few more hours." "You will not survive a few more hours," Taeyang said quietly. "You made a mistake when you attacked this ship. You thought we were prey. You were wrong. We are predators pretending to be prey. And now the pretending is over. While he talked, Hyun and the others were moving. They used maintenance tunnels to get above and below the cargo bay. They cut through walls in unexpected places. They moved with infinite patience, taking their time to get into perfect position. This was persistence hunting on a new scale. Not chasing prey until it collapsed, but surrounding it, cutting off escape, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the attack came, it was simultaneous from 6 directions. The Kravex had prepared for enemies coming through the doors. They did not expect enemies coming through walls, ceiling, and floor at the same time. The fight was brutal but quick. The humans had surprise and positioning. The Kravex had desperation and strength. In the end, training and intelligence beat raw power. When the cargo bay doors opened again, all the humans walked out alive. Some were wounded, but none seriously. Behind them lay 20 Kravex. Most were dead. A few were unconscious and would be locked up. The ship was clear. The threat was over. The humans had won. In the command center, coalition officers stood in shocked silence. They had watched the entire thing. Watched 12 humans systematically hunt down and eliminate 50 trained warriors. Kaveth turned to Velmora. "What have we been living with for 30 years?" she asked quietly. "What are they really?" Velmora did not answer. She could not. She had thought she knew humans. She had been completely wrong. When the humans returned to command center, they looked exhausted. The adrenaline was fading. They were becoming their normal selves again. Friendly, tired, relieved. But the coalition members would never see them the same way again. They had seen what humans could do. What they chose not to do most of the time. That choice was more terrifying than the violence itself, because it meant humans were always capable of this. They just decided not to be, for now. And the Kravex fleet was still coming. The Coalition Council convened an emergency session 3 hours after the attack. Representatives from all 14 species gathered in the secure conference room. The atmosphere was tense and fearful. Humans were not invited. They waited outside under armed guard. Not that the guards would do much good, everyone now realized. But it made the coalition members feel slightly safer. Velmora stood at the center of the council chamber. Her injuries had been treated, but she still looked shaken. "We must decide what to do about humanity," she began. "They saved us, but they also lied to us for 30 years. A representative named Sora spoke up. Her species resembled floating jellyfish, gentle and slow-moving. "They are predators. We built this coalition on the principle of peaceful coexistence. How can we coexist with hunters? They have coexisted with us for 3 decades, Kaveth countered. "They never harmed any of us. They could have conquered the coalition at any time. They are clearly capable. But they chose not to. They chose not to yet," another counselor said nervously. "But what if they change their minds? What if we anger them? They could wipe us out and we could not stop them." The debate grew heated. Some wanted humans expelled from the coalition immediately. Others argued that humans had proven themselves loyal. A few suggested Earth should be quarantined, cut off from the rest of the galaxy forever. Kaveth requested permission to present her research. The council reluctantly agreed. She displayed her findings on the central screen. Earth's history scrolled past. Wars, empires, weapons, death on massive scales. "This is what they hid from us," Kaveth said. 10,000 years of nearly constant warfare. They fought over territory, resources, ideas, and religion. They developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They came close to extinction several times. Shocked silence filled the room. These numbers were beyond coalition understanding. Their species had small conflicts occasionally, but nothing like this. Nothing approaching genocide or world war. "But look at this," Kaveth continued. She changed the display. 300 years ago, everything changed. Humans stopped fighting each other. They created a unified government. They redirected their resources from military to culture. They became what we know today. 300 years is nothing, Sora protested. Evolution takes millions of years. Instinct does not disappear in a few centuries. Exactly, Kaveth agreed. Their instincts did not disappear. We saw that today, but they controlled those instincts. They built a civilization that actively suppressed their violent nature. For 3 centuries, they maintained peace. "That is remarkable," Velmora spoke quietly. "The question is not whether humans are dangerous. They clearly are. The question is whether we can trust them to remain peaceful. Can a predator species truly change? Perhaps we should ask them, Kaveth suggested. Let them explain. Hear their perspective. After heated discussion, the council agreed. Taeyang was brought in alone. He walked calmly, but his eyes showed sadness. He knew his diplomatic career was probably over. The trust he had built over decades was shattered. Taeyang, Velmora began formally. The Coalition Council demands an explanation. Why did you hide your true nature? Why deceive us for 30 years? Taeyang took a deep breath. Because we knew you would reject us if you knew the truth, he said simply. When we first developed faster-than-light travel, we were excited to meet other species. But we also studied galactic history. We learned that the Coalition was entirely peaceful species, herbivores and filter feeders. No predators, no species with our history of violence, he continued. We knew that if we introduced ourselves honestly, you would be terrified. You would quarantine Earth. Humanity would remain isolated forever. So we made a difficult choice. We decided to show you only part of who we are. You lied, Sora said angrily. We omitted truth, Taeyang corrected gently. Everything we showed you was real. Our art, our philosophy, our love of peace. We truly had transformed ourselves. We genuinely wanted to join a peaceful galaxy, but we knew our past would frighten you, so we did not speak of it. Velmora leaned forward. But you kept your military training. You kept your weapons knowledge. You kept your capacity for violence. Yes, Taeyang admitted, because we learned a hard lesson in our history. Peace is fragile. It must be defended. We hope to never need those skills again. We prayed the galaxy was as peaceful as you believed, but we prepared for the possibility that it was not. He looked around at the frightened faces. Today proved we were right to prepare. The Kravex exist. There are violent species in this galaxy. You survived today only because humans were here. If you had only your peaceful members, everyone in that celebration hall would be dead or enslaved. The council members shifted uncomfortably. They knew he was right. They hated that he was right. Kaveth asked the difficult question. How do we know you will not turn on us? You are stronger than all of us combined. What stops you from conquering the Coalition? Taeyang was silent for a long moment. Choice, he finally said. We could conquer you easily. We could have done it 30 years ago. We could do it tomorrow. But we choose not to. That is what makes us civilized. Not the absence of violent capability, but the choice not to use it. Choices can change, Velmora said quietly. Yes, Taeyang agreed. They can. That is the risk you take. But consider this. Humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We know war intimately. We know exactly what it costs. That knowledge made us choose peace. We understand violence too well to want it anymore, he continued, his voice passionate now. You fear us because you have never known violence. It is alien to you, but we have lived with it our entire evolutionary history. We know it leads only to suffering. That is why we worked so hard to transcend it, not because we could not fight, but because we knew the true price of fighting. The council chamber was silent. They were considering his words. But before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A sensor officer burst into the chamber. The Kravex fleet has arrived, she announced frantically. 15 warships. They are demanding we surrender all humans and any Coalition members who help them. If we refuse, they will destroy us, panic erupted. Coalition ships were not designed for combat. They had shields and basic defensive systems, but nothing that could stand against a military fleet. The Coalition had always relied on diplomacy and the assumption that no one would attack them. That assumption had just proven deadly wrong. Velmora made a quick decision. Taeyang, get your people. We need your expertise. You want us to fight for you? Taeyang asked. After you just debated expelling us? You said we are your pack, Velmora replied. Was that true or just words? Taeyang smiled slightly. It was true. We protect our pack. But you need to understand something. If we fight this battle with you, there is no going back. You will have to accept what we are. All of it, the violence, the strategic thinking, the capacity for warfare. Can you do that? The council members looked at each other. They had two choices: accept humanity completely, with all their frightening capabilities, or face the Kravex alone and almost certainly die. It was not really a choice at all. Help us, Velmora said. We accept you as you are. Just please help us survive. Hyun entered the chamber, followed by the other humans. They must have been listening from outside. We will need full access to your ship systems, Hyun said immediately. Command of Defensive Operations, and you need to follow our orders without question. War does not work by committee. Velimora hesitated. Giving humans complete military control was terrifying. But the Kravex fleet would arrive in less than an hour. Agreed, she said. What do you need? Hyun moved to the tactical display. His demeanor changed completely. The friendly security officer was gone. In his place stood a military commander with decades of training. First, we need to understand your capabilities. What can coalition ships actually do? The coalition officers explained. Their ships had strong shields, good engines, excellent sensors, but no weapons beyond basic defensive systems. They were built for exploration and trade, not combat. That is a problem, Hyun said quietly. He studied the tactical situation. 15 Kravex warships against 8 coalition vessels. No contest in a direct fight, but Hyun was smiling slightly. We cannot win a straight battle. So we will not fight one, we will fight smart instead. Nari stepped forward. I have an idea, she said. The Kravex are aggressive by nature, overconfident. They expect easy victory. We can use that against them. Taeyang nodded. Psychological warfare. Make them angry. Make them make mistakes. Lead them into traps. Kaveth watched the humans plan. They spoke quickly, building on each other's ideas. This was not their first time planning military strategy. They had done this before, or at least trained extensively for it. What had humanity been preparing for all these years? What threats had they anticipated that the peaceful coalition never imagined? We have 1 hour, Hyun announced. Everyone to their stations. Follow human tactical commands exactly. Hesitation will get us killed. Trust will keep us alive. The coalition members rushed to obey. They were terrified of the humans, but they were more terrified of the Kravex. Between 2 predator species, at least the humans had proven they could control themselves. The Kravex had proven only that they could not. As the coalition fleet prepared for battle, Velimora approached Taeyang one last time. The Kravex fleet commander looked at his display with satisfaction. 8 coalition ships against his 15 warships. This would be over quickly. Then he would have humans to study. Perhaps even to breed. A warrior species would make excellent shock troops once properly controlled. He opened a communication channel. Coalition vessels, this is War Chief Graktal. Surrender the humans immediately. You will not be harmed. Resist and we will take them by force and your ships will be destroyed. In the coalition flagship, Hyun listened to the demand. He looked at Taeyang and smiled coldly. Let me answer that. Taeyang nodded. Hyun opened the channel. But when he spoke, his voice was not the gentle security officer the coalition knew. It was hard and mocking. War Chief Graktal, this is Commander Hyun of Earth. We decline your offer. If you want us, come and take us. If you can. There was a pause. Then Graktal laughed, a grinding sound. Bold words from prey species. We accept your challenge. You will die bravely at least. We will see who dies, Hyun replied calmly, then cut the channel. The Kravex fleet began their attack run. They came in standard battle formation, proud and confident. They had used this formation to conquer dozens of systems. It always worked, but they had never fought humans before. All coalition ships scatter, Hyun ordered. Execute pattern Delta 7. The coalition fleet broke apart, ships moving in different directions. They had practiced this maneuver in the last hour under human instruction. It felt unnatural to run away, but they trusted the humans knew what they were doing. The Kravex fleet hesitated, confused. Prey was supposed to huddle together in fear or stand and fight, not scatter like this. Graktal snarled orders. His fleet divided to chase multiple targets. Perfect, Hyun said quietly. They took the bait. Now we make them pay for splitting up. Coalition ships led the Kravex toward an asteroid field. The coalition navigators were excellent, trained for decades in precision flying. They threaded through the asteroids easily. The Kravex warships were larger and less maneuverable. They had to slow down. Now, Hyun commanded, all ships execute ambush protocol. The coalition ships that seemed to be running suddenly stopped and turned. They had lured individual Kravex ships into isolated positions. Now with humans coordinating their actions, 3 coalition vessels focused fire on one enemy ship at a time. The coalition ships might not have heavy weapons, but they had powerful mining lasers and industrial tools. Under human direction, they used these creatively. Cutting beams sliced through enemy shields when focused on single points. Tractor beams pushed asteroids into enemy paths. The first Kravex ship exploded, caught between 3 coalition vessels and a large asteroid. Graktal roared in rage. They are using mining equipment. They have no real weapons. They have better than weapons, his tactical officer said nervously. They have strategy. They are fighting smart, not strong. This was the human way of war. Not overwhelming force, but intelligence applied to whatever resources were available. Early humans had killed mammoths with pointed sticks and teamwork. Modern humans could turn civilian ships into effective fighters through tactics and coordination. Nari watched the battle from the tactical station. She suggested targets based on Kravex psychology. That ship there, the one with more decorations. It is probably commanded by someone arrogant. Damage it and they will charge recklessly to restore honor. Hyun followed her advice. A coalition ship raked the decorated Kravex cruiser with cutting beams, scarring its hull. As predicted, the cruiser broke formation and charged alone, trying to crush the insulting enemy. It flew directly into a trap. 4 coalition ships converged from different angles. The Kravex cruiser fought hard but could not defend against attacks from all sides. It died alone, far from support. 2 down, Hyun counted calmly. 13 to go. Keep them separated. Do not let them regroup. The battle continued for 2 hours. It was exhausting for everyone. Coalition crews were not trained for combat. They were scientists and traders pushed beyond their limits. But humans rotated through command positions, always keeping fresh eyes on tactics, and they encouraged constantly keeping morale up. You are doing great, Taeyang told a trembling navigator. That maneuver was perfect. Keep it up. The navigator looked at him with tears in her eyes. I am so scared. I never wanted to fight anyone. I know, Taeyang said gently, but you are protecting your people. That is worth fighting for. You are braver than you know. Slowly, painfully, the coalition was learning. They were discovering courage they did not know they had. They were finding that even peaceful species could defend themselves when properly guided. 5 Kravex ships destroyed, 8 remaining. But the coalition had lost 2 ships too, and others were damaged. The math was not good. Eventually, numbers would tell. Graktal finally understood he was being outmaneuvered. He ordered his remaining ships to consolidate. No more chasing separated targets. They would advance as a unified fleet and crush the coalition with overwhelming power. Hyun saw the change in enemy tactics. They adapted, he said with grudging respect. Smart, they learned from their mistakes. That makes them dangerous. What do we do? Velamora asked. She was exhausted, covered in sweat, but still commanding her ship. We adapt too, Hyun said. Humans are good at that. Borum, how much power can we divert from life support? Borum the engineer did quick calculations. 30%. For about 10 minutes before crew starts to suffer. That will be enough, Hyun decided. All ships divert life support to shields and engines. We are going to play dead, then hit them with everything at once. The coalition ships appeared to lose power. Lights dimmed. Engines stuttered. They drifted helplessly. The Kravex fleet advanced confidently. The prey had finally given up. The Kravex came close, preparing to board and capture. Then the coalition ship suddenly blazed with power. Every system that had been quietly diverting energy to weapons and shields came alive at once. At point-blank range, the coalition fleet unleashed everything. Mining lasers, tractor beams, electromagnetic pulse weapons meant for clearing debris, all focused on the nearest Kravex ships simultaneously. 3 Kravex ships died in the first 30 seconds. 2 more were crippled and drifting. The remaining 3 scattered in panic. But the coalition had pushed too hard. 2 more of their ships were destroyed in the exchange. They were down to 4 functioning vessels. The enemy had 3, closer to even numbers now. But everyone was exhausted and damaged. Graktal was no longer confident. He had started this battle with overwhelming superiority. Now most of his fleet was destroyed by prey species using mining equipment. The shame was unbearable, but worse than shame was the realization. These were not prey. The coalition had humans, and humans understood war in ways the Kravex did not. They fought with their minds, not just their muscles. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage through cleverness. Retreat, Graktal ordered, his voice bitter. Pull back to hyperspace distance. The 3 remaining Kravex ships turned and ran. But Hyun was not done. Chase them to hyperspace limit, he ordered. Make them remember this. Make them afraid to come back. The coalition ships pursued, harrying the retreating enemy. They did not try to destroy them. Hyun knew that survivors would spread the story. The Kraveks would tell others about the coalition's human allies, about prey that fought like predators. Word would spread, and maybe, just maybe, other aggressive species would think twice before attacking. When the Kraveks jumped to hyperspace, the coalition fleet stopped. Silence filled all the ships. They had won. Against all odds, with civilian vessels and improvised tactics, they had won. Then the cheering started. Coalition crews celebrated, crying and hugging each other. They had faced their worst fear and survived. They had discovered courage they never knew existed, but the humans did not celebrate. They looked tired and sad. Hyun stared at the tactical display showing the destroyed ships. So much death. Even enemy death weighed on him. Velamora noticed his expression. "You are not happy we won?" she asked. "I am glad you survived," Hyun said quietly. "But war is never something to celebrate. It is something to survive, something to learn from, something to hopefully never repeat." He looked at her directly. "We won because we understood violence better than they did. But that knowledge came from 10,000 years of suffering. Every tactic I used, humans learned by dying. Every strategy cost countless lives over our history. This is not a gift. It is a curse we learned to control." Velamora was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you for sharing that curse with us, for saving us." "You are our pack," Hyun replied simply. "We protect our pack." As the fleet began repairs and rescued survivors, Kaveth approached Nari. "You predicted everything they would do," Kaveth said. "How?" Nari looked sad. "Because I study behavior, including aggressive behavior. I understand psychology, including the psychology of violence. Just because I choose not to be violent does not mean I do not understand it." "All humans understand it," Kaveth realized. "Even your civilians. Even your artists and scientists. You all carry this knowledge." "Yes," Nari admitted. "It is part of us. We cannot remove it. We can only choose not to use it. Or to use it only when we must, to protect others." The coalition was begin 3 days after the battle. The coalition council met again. This time the atmosphere was different. Fear remained, but now mixed with grudging respect and desperate need. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy. The coalition had fought off the Kraveks. Other aggressive species were paying attention. Some were impressed. Others saw opportunity. If the coalition could be attacked once, it could be attacked again. The coalition had a new problem. They were no longer invisible. They were no longer ignored as harmless. They had shown they could fight. That made them interesting to predators. Velamora addressed the council. "We must face reality," she said. "The galaxy is not as peaceful as we believed. Dangerous species exist. We can no longer pretend otherwise. The question is, what do we do about it?" Sora spoke nervously. "We could build weapons, train military forces, become warriors like the Kraveks." "No," Kaveth said firmly. "That would change us fundamentally. We would lose what makes us who we are. We would become what we fear. Then what?" Another counselor asked. "Remain helpless? Hope we get lucky next time?" "We learn," Kaveth said. "The humans showed us something important. We do not need to become warriors. We need to understand warfare. There is a difference." She displayed her research. Humans spent 300 years studying their own violent history, not to glorify it, but to understand it. They teach every child about war's consequences, about the price of violence. That knowledge allows them to control their instincts. "What are you suggesting?" Velamora asked. "We ask humans to teach us," Kaveth said. "Not to become fighters, but to understand fighting, to recognize threats, to defend ourselves intelligently, to know when to fight and when to negotiate, to build a coalition that can protect itself without losing its soul." The council debated for hours. Some members resisted. Learning violence felt like corruption, like accepting something evil into their culture. Others argued it was necessary. Ignorance had nearly gotten them all killed. Finally, they voted. By narrow margin, they agreed. Humans would become military advisors for the coalition. They would teach defensive strategy, train coalition members to recognize and respond to threats, help design better defensive systems for ships. But there were strict conditions. Humans could advise but not command. They could teach but not control. And most importantly, they would also teach restraint. Every lesson in warfare must be balanced by lessons in when not to use violence. Taeyang was brought before the council to hear their decision. He listened carefully, his diplomat face back in place. But his eyes showed understanding. This was not full acceptance. This was cautious cooperation. It would have to be enough. We accept your conditions, Taeyang said formally. Humanity will serve as teachers and advisors. We will help the coalition defend itself. But we understand your concerns. We will prove we can be trusted with this responsibility. How? Velmora asked directly. How do we know you will not abuse this position? You will be teaching us your greatest strengths while we remain weak in comparison. You will always be weak in comparison, Taeyang said honestly. That is biological reality. But being weaker does not mean being helpless, and having power does not mean using it. We will show you through actions, not words. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. The council agreed reluctantly. Humans would get their chance, but they would be watched closely. Any sign of aggression toward coalition members would result in immediate expulsion. The first training began a week later. Hyun stood before a group of coalition security officers. They looked at him with mixed fear and curiosity. These officers had carried stunners for years, breaking up occasional drunk arguments. Now they needed to understand real threats. We will start with basics, Hyun said gently. Threat assessment, how to recognize danger, how to evaluate options, most importantly, how to choose the minimum necessary response. He showed them scenarios. Pirates approaching a ship, aggressive aliens making demands, different situations requiring different responses. Sometimes talking worked. Sometimes showing strength prevented violence. Sometimes fighting was necessary. The key was knowing which was which. Violence should always be the last option, Hyun emphasized. Not because it does not work, but because it costs too much. Every fight, even one fight, damages everyone involved. Smart commanders avoid conflict when possible. They only fight when necessary. A young coalition officer raised a tentacle nervously. But you seem good at fighting. You defeated the Kraveks easily. Do you really avoid it? We did not defeat them easily, Hyun corrected. We lost ships. People died. We won through strategy and sacrifice. And yes, we avoid fighting when possible. Being skilled at something does not mean you should do it often. I am skilled at killing. That does not mean I enjoy it or seek it out. Over the following weeks, training expanded. Nari taught psychology of aggression, how to read body language, how to recognize escalating threats, how to de-escalate when possible. Borum taught ship defense systems, not weapons, but how to use existing tools creatively. Mining lasers as last resort weapons, tractor beams for tactical positioning, shield configurations that maximized protection. Taeyang taught negotiation under pressure, how to talk to aggressive species, how to project strength without threatening, how to find peaceful solutions even when facing violence. The coalition members learned slowly. It was difficult for them. Violence was so alien to their nature, but they persisted, driven by memory of helplessness during the Kraveks attack. Kaveth attended many sessions, observing and learning. She spoke with Nari one day after class. I am beginning to understand something, Kaveth said. Humans do not glorify violence. You study it clinically, like a disease you hope to cure someday. That is exactly right, Nari said. Violence is part of our evolutionary heritage. We cannot remove it, but we can understand it, control it, minimize it. Every generation of humans tries to be less violent than the last. We are not perfect, but we keep trying. Why? Kaveth asked. If you are so good at it, why not embrace it? You could dominate the galaxy easily. Nari was quiet for a moment. Because we know where that leads. We have been there. Empires rise through conquest and fall through bloodshed. We have seen civilizations destroy themselves with war. We almost destroyed ourselves several times. We learned the hard way that violence is a tool, not a solution. It can stop immediate threats, but it never creates lasting peace. Meanwhile, Velmora worked with Taeyang on coalition strategic planning. They discussed defensive positions, patrol routes, early warning systems, ways to make the coalition harder to attack without building an offensive military. You are good at this, Velmora admitted. Thinking strategically, planning for threats. It comes naturally to you. 30 years of practice, Taeyang said. Hiding our nature required constant strategic thinking, always planning what to say, what to hide, how to appear harmless. In some ways, diplomacy is just another form of strategy. That is concerning, Velmora said. You manipulated us for decades. We protected you, Taeyang corrected gently. From your own fear. If we had been honest from the start, you would have rejected us. We would have remained isolated, and when the Kraveks attacked, you would have died. Our deception saved lives, including yours. Velimora could not argue with that logic, but it still bothered her. Humans thought several moves ahead, always planning, always calculating. Could such strategic minds ever be truly trustworthy? As if reading her thoughts, Taeyang said, I know you still fear us. That is smart. You should fear what we can do, but judge us by what we choose to do. We could have conquered the Coalition 30 years ago. We could conquer it tomorrow. But we choose not to. That choice matters. Choices can change, Velimora said quietly. Yes, Taeyang agreed. Which is why we teach you to defend yourselves. So you are not dependent on our choices. So you can protect yourselves if needed. We are giving you the tools to oppose us if you must. That is not what conquerors do. Months passed. The training continued. Coalition members gradually became more confident. They still were not warriors, but they were no longer helpless. They understood threats. They could defend themselves. They had options beyond submission or death. Word spread through the galaxy. The Coalition had changed. They were still peaceful, but now they were prepared. Attacking them would be costly. Pirates began avoiding Coalition space. Aggressive species looked for easier targets. The Coalition's reputation transformed. No longer naive pacifists. Now they were peaceful by choice, not by helplessness. That made all the difference. But the relationship with humanity remained complex. Coalition members respected humans, relied on them, but never quite trusted them. Fear remained in the background. Always the question, what if humans decided to stop being peaceful? Hyun understood this. He spoke about it with the other humans one evening. They will never fully trust us, he said. And maybe that is okay. Healthy fear keeps everyone honest. As long as they judge us by our actions, not their fears, we can work together. I wish they could see us as we really are, Mina said sadly. Not just as controlled predators, but as people who chose to be better. They do see that, Nari assured her. They just also see what we could be if we stopped choosing. Both views are valid. We are people 1 year after the Kraveks attack. The Coalition gathered for their annual conference. Every member species sent representatives. The meeting hall was larger than before, with new defensive systems visible throughout. The Coalition had changed in visible ways. Velimora opened the conference with a speech. She stood tall now, no longer the naive commander who thought diplomacy solved everything. She had learned hard lessons. 1 year ago we faced extinction, she began. We learned the galaxy is not always peaceful. We learned that ignorance does not protect us. Most importantly, we learned that we could defend ourselves without losing who we are. She gestured to the human delegation. We owe our survival to humanity. They saved us. They taught us. They shared knowledge that took their species millennia to acquire. They did this despite our fear and suspicion. They proved that strength and wisdom can coexist with peaceful intentions. Polite applause followed. The Coalition respected humans now, but the wariness remained. Some things did not change. After the formal speeches, Taeyang and Velimora walked together through the ship's observation deck. They looked out at the assembled fleet. Coalition ships now had better shields, improved sensors, defensive weapons that could actually defend. They were still not warships, but they were no longer helpless. How are the new cadets doing? Velimora asked. The Coalition had established a defensive academy with human instructors teaching tactics and strategy. Well, Taeyang said, they are learning fast. Your species adapt quickly when properly motivated. They will never be natural warriors, but they understand threats now. They can protect themselves. That is enough, is it? Velimora asked. Enough? 3 more attacks this year. Pirates testing our defenses. Aggressive species probing our borders. The galaxy noticed we can fight back. That brought more attention, not less. Attention is better than invisibility, Taeyang said. Being noticed as strong deters more attacks than being ignored as weak. Yes, some predators test you now, but most avoid you. The math works in your favor. Velimora nodded slowly. The Council wants to expand human participation. More teachers. More advisors. Some even suggest humans command our defensive forces directly. No, Taeyang said immediately. That would be a mistake. You must command your own forces. We can advise, but you must lead. Otherwise, you become dependent. Worse, you become our followers instead of our equals. Even if we command less effectively? Vilmora asked. Especially then, Taeyang said firmly. Learning requires making mistakes. You must develop your own strategic thinking, not just copy ours. We can teach, but you must learn. The goal is not to make you into humans. The goal is to help you protect yourselves in ways that work for your species. He paused, then added, Besides, keeping humans out of direct command is safer for everyone. It maintains separation, prevents us from having too much power. The council is right to be cautious. Vilmora appreciated his honesty. Taeyang had become a friend over the past year. As much as friendship was possible between species who did not fully trust each other. She respected his wisdom even while fearing his capability. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. Hiding what you were for 30 years? Would it have been better to be honest from the start? Taeyang considered the question carefully. I used to think we made the right choice. Now I am not sure. We got 30 years of peaceful cooperation, but those years were built on deception. When truth came out, it shattered trust. Maybe honest fear from the beginning would have been better than betrayed trust later. But would we have given you a chance? Vilmora asked. If we knew the full truth about humanity, would we have accepted you? Probably not, Taeyang admitted. You would have been too afraid. So we did what we thought was best. We earned your trust before revealing our full nature. We proved we could be peaceful before showing we could be dangerous. Was it manipulation? Yes. Was it necessary? Maybe. Was it right? I still do not know. Across the observation deck, Kaveth was having a similar conversation with Nari. The two had become unlikely friends, bonding over their scientific backgrounds. I published my research on human psychology, Kaveth said. It is required reading now for all Coalition Diplomatic Corps. Understanding humans has become essential knowledge. What did you conclude? Nari asked curiously. Kaveth clicked thoughtfully. That humans are the most dangerous and most valuable allies the Coalition has ever had. Dangerous because your capacity for violence is unmatched. Valuable because your choice not to use that violence is genuine. You understand war well enough to avoid it. That wisdom is rare in the galaxy. You make us sound like reformed criminals, Nari said with slight amusement. In a way, all of humanity is, Kaveth said. Your entire species has a violent criminal history, 10,000 years of warfare. But you served your sentence. You rehabilitated yourselves. You chose to be better. That makes you either the most trustworthy species in the galaxy or the most dangerous deception ever created. Which do you believe? Nari asked. Kaveth was quiet for a long moment. I want to believe you are trustworthy. I see evidence of genuine change, but I also see how easily you slip back into warrior mode when threatened. The predator is always there just beneath the surface. One bad generation, one wrong leader, and humanity could become everything we fear. You are right, Nari agreed. That possibility always exists. All we can do is choose every day to be better than our instincts, to use our strength to protect, not to dominate, to remember the lessons our violent history taught us. And if humans forget those lessons, Kaveth pressed, then the Coalition will need to stop us, Nari said seriously. That is why we teach you to defend yourselves, why we share our strategic knowledge, so you are not helpless if we ever turn on you. A balance of power keeps everyone honest. In another part of the ship, Hyun was conducting a training session with Coalition security forces. They practiced threat assessment and response scenarios. The students had improved dramatically over the year. A young officer named Dara performed particularly well. She anticipated threats correctly and chose appropriate responses. Most importantly, she used minimum necessary force, avoiding violence when diplomacy worked. After class, Dara approached Hyun nervously. Commander, may I ask a personal question? Go ahead, Hyun said. You have killed people, Dara said bluntly. During the Kravex attack, other times probably. How do you live with that? How do you remain kind and gentle when you have done such violent things? Hyun was silent for a moment. I live with it by remembering why I did it. To protect others. To save lives. Violence in defense of others is not the same as violence for its own sake. But it still costs something. Every life taken, even enemy lives, leaves a mark. That is appropriate. The day killing becomes easy as the day you lose your humanity. So you feel guilt? Dara asked. I feel responsibility, Hyun corrected. Guilt implies wrong action. I do not think I was wrong to defend this ship. But I am responsible for the deaths I caused. I carry that weight. It reminds me to seek peaceful solutions first, to use violence only when necessary, The weight keeps me human. Dara nodded slowly, processing this. Thank you for being honest. Many warriors glorify their victories. You mourn yours. That gives me hope. That evening, all the humans gathered in their shared quarters. They had become close over the past year, united by being permanent outsiders in the coalition. Accepted but not trusted. Necessary but not welcomed. I got a message from Earth, Junho said. He was the musician who had used his perfect hearing during the Kravix attack. They want to know if we want replacements. If this posting is too difficult, what did you tell them? Boram asked. That I want to stay, Junho said. This is important work. Difficult, yes. Sometimes uncomfortable. But we are making a difference. The coalition is stronger because of us, safer, that matters, the others agreed. Despite the challenges, they felt purposeful here. They were using their unique abilities to help others. That was worth the suspicion and isolation. Mina spoke up. Do you think it will always be like this? Will they ever truly trust us? Or will we always be the dangerous outsiders? Maybe both, Taeyang said. Maybe we will always be dangerous in their eyes. But through our actions, through consistent choices to help rather than harm, we can earn respect. Perhaps that is better than blind trust. Respect based on evidence is more durable than trust based on ignorance. I just wish they could see us as people, Mina said sadly. Not as controlled predators. Just as people. We are both, Hyun said. People and predators. Denying either half is dishonest. The coalition sees us clearly now. All of us, the gentle and the dangerous. The artistic and the violent. That complete picture is more honest than the partial one we showed before. The conversation continued late into the night. These humans far from home, supporting each other in their difficult mission. They were ambassadors of a new kind, not hiding humanity's nature but proving it could be controlled, not pretending to be harmless but demonstrating they could choose harmlessness. Months later, another test came. A coalition exploration ship encountered an unknown species. They were aggressive, immediately attacking. The exploration ship called for help.